We on tape, Special Agent Alfonso Williams of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Today's date is June 17, 2016. Time is approximately 9:39 in the morning. I am at FDLE, Orlando Regional Operations Center, 500 West Robinson Street, City of Orlando. Sorry, it's in reference to FDLE case number OR-27-0258. Which is a police use of force investigation that began on June 12, 2016 at the Pulse Nightclub. That's 1912 South Orange Avenue, Orlando. And I'm conducting an interview with Detective Adam Gruler.
Correct.
Of the Orlando Police Department. Conducting an interview with me as FDLE Special Agent Craig Beers and FBI Special Agent Kevin Ferriton. Also present in the room is Jason Bankowicz, Detective Gruler's attorney. Detective Gruler, for the record, I would like to clarify that this is a voluntary statement being given by you as part of the criminal investigation into the shooting incident, and that you are not being compelled at any way to provide this statement. At any time, you are free to terminate these proceedings and leave. Do you understand?
I do.
Okay. With that said, do you understand that this voluntary statement is being taken as part of the criminal investigation and that it is not an internal affairs administrative statement?
Correct.
Okay. At this time, could you raise your right hand? Do you swear the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
I do.
Okay. Just prior to this interview, have you reviewed any video or recording of this incident?
I have not, no.
Okay. Okay. Would you please state your full name?
Detective Adam T. Gruler, Gruler.
And you're currently employed by the Orlando Police Department, correct?
That is correct.
And how long you been employed with OPD?
Just shy of 15 years.
And on the date of the incident, were you performing your duties as a police officer?
I was, yes.
And what did your duties consist of?
I was working extra duty at the Pulse Nightclub located at 1912 South Orange Avenue, which is within the city of Orlando limits. And I've been working that club for approximately a year and a half to 2 years now.
Okay. And what time did your shift start?
The typical shift is from 11:30 p.m. to 3:30 a.m. That evening, I believe I arrived around 11:40 since I went and grabbed a cup of coffee before my arrival.
Okay. What uniform were you wearing at the time?
At the time, I was wearing sort of a modified uniform just for comfort. I'm a motor officer, and I had left a motors detail, which is motorcycle boots, motor riding breeches, and a white polo shirt. The boots, after several hours, will hurt your feet, so I changed my boots into regular tactical boots and 511 pants. So it wasn't a traditional uniform, but it was still a full uniform that we have utilized in the past.
Okay. Were you in your a police vehicle?
I operate a unmarked vehicle, which is a Dodge Journey. It does not have any insignia. It does have lights and sirens behind tinted windows.
Okay. And what color is the vehicle?
Like a dark gray.
Were you easily identifiable as a police officer?
Yes.
What weapon were you carrying?
My duty issued 6-hour 9mm.
How many types of magazines were you carrying?
Standard issue 3 magazines, 1 in the firearm and 2 on the belt.
What is the maximum rounds of your magazines?
15 each, plus 1 round for the chamber of the firearm.
Okay, at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to you and tell me how you became involved in this incident.
So that evening, again, I arrived about 11:40. I had stopped down at the Wawa for a cup of coffee prior to the shift starting. Signed 10-8 or on duty with the comm center via the radio as the Oscar number of Oscar 753. with an ending time of approximately 03:30 in the morning. Parked my car on the south side of the building, which is parallel to Esther Street, Esther, on the sidewalk. That is where I've always parked my vehicle. That's where all the other off-duty officers that work the club have always parked their vehicles. That's positioned right in front of the main door to the club, and also has a view of the double doors coming out of the south side of the building. Within about 15-20 minutes of being there, a security officer notified me that there was a patron that had passed out on the sidewalk, and he was concerned for him. I went over there, ended up determining that he needed to be transported to the hospital. We notified OFD. He was transported. The friend that was with him was taken away by another friend who was sober, and resolved that. A little while after that, probably the 1-ish hour, Aja, one of the managers, came to me and said that she had been informed by the club promoter that a 17-year-old was potentially inside the club and had entered under a ID of somebody else. We entered the club. She identified the individual to me. We entered through the main door, went through the main dance floor, out to the patio where I made contact with him, asked him to come outside and speak with me. While we were standing at the main door outside, I asked him for his identification. He said he didn't have any. His friend had it, but I could see he had a wallet in his pocket, a bulge indicate, a large bulge like a typical wallet. As I went to take hold of his right arm to detain him, he took off running. It's a 17-year-old. I didn't see him drinking. I looked at him and said, "All right, dude, have a good night." He ran across the street to the Dunkin' Donuts. He stopped. I was yelling whatever he's yelling. "You're not going to touch me. You're not going to do nothing to me," whatever. And so I started to walk towards him, and he took off running across Orange Avenue and into the neighborhood. At that point, I called onto the Orlando Police radio, requesting for a backup unit to just do an area check of the neighborhood for the 17-year-old, that I had some misdemeanor charges of resisting an officer without violence, and that if they found him, I would make the arrest. Spoke with the club managers, Aja and Brian, along with the promoter, who I don't know his name, and was provided with the 17-year-old's name. Apparently he is a known person that they know somehow. So I pulled him up on my David on the computer. They said, "Yep, that's him." And I said, "All right, let me go and I'll just go drive through the neighborhood and see if I can find him." So I left property. I was off property, I believe, about 20 minutes. Never located the juvenile. Came back on the property, parked my vehicle again where I always park, and at that point it was just before 2 o'clock. Usually at 2 a.m. I will move from standing in the area of my car over towards the valet, who are standing at their podium in the middle of the driveway, to kind of keep the flow of things going. People like to come out and hang out, and they'll back up the valet folks from doing their job. So I was standing at the front of my car when I heard gunshots coming from within the building. Instantaneously knew exactly what it was. There was no question as to, it wasn't the music. The DJs do play gunshots in their music, and it drives me nuts. I absolutely hate that soundtrack. But it was not gunshot mix-in. Instantaneously knew that it was a live shooter inside the club. There was a vehicle that was parked in the parking lot facing south at an angle, just away from the main doors. Took cover behind that. called out shots fired, shots fired, shots fired on the radio. Drew my service weapon, was pointing it at the club. Based on my account, I identified the first series of shots coming from the west side of the building. The building's broken up to essentially three bars. There's the west bar, the main dance floor, and the patio bar. As I'm looking at the main doors, I see the main doors open. There's a Hispanic female who's banging on the door. The main door is a big steel door with a plexiglass insert. When that door slams shut, it's very loud and it can sound like that of a small caliber gunshot. And she's banging. So at that moment I thought, I'm gonna just yell at this girl because I just called shots fired and it's her banging on the door. But she stopped and the shooting continued. So I knew it was not her. What seemed like forever went by, but at one point just masses of people started flowing out of the building from every crevice they could. The main doors, the side patio gate, the double doors on the south side. The shooting continued. There was the first series. When the first shots went off, I thought it was a handgun. But then, as the shooting of the first series continued, I knew it became a long gun because of the number of rounds that was expended. There was a pause, and then another, what I call volley, another series of rounds. Victims started coming out bleeding. There was somebody, I don't know if a male, female, but they were wearing white, and I could just see red on them. At that point, I'm still taking cover by the vehicle that's parked in the parking lot, away from my patrol vehicle, or my unmarked vehicle, but that was only my vehicle's about 10-15 feet away. Start yelling at everybody, run, 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 go, go, go. It was an active shooter. I identified it as a long gun. I was outpowered. I had a handgun. He had a long gun. It was me. Our training is not to engage solo when we're outpowered. We train for an active shooter to advance towards an active shooter with a team. So I was waiting for additional units to show up. I remember speaking on the radio. He's still shooting. I think I said, get me people here now or something. Seemed like forever that I was by myself. At one point I see two individuals, I believe they were males, come out of the south double doors and then drop right there. And then I begin to see the barrel of a gun come out, and then some portion of a body, a shoulder, an elbow, emerge directly behind that. And there were gunshots from that long gun at those two victims that dropped. At that point, I identified that as a shooter, fearful for my life and the lives of others, and the shooting continued. I discharged my firearm anywhere from 2 to 6 times on the first engagement. I don't know my round count, impacting the right double door, which is where the shooter was coming from. That caused him to retreat in. I repositioned towards the west of where I initially was, to another vehicle that was parked along the dumpsters. There's a fence there. There's a vehicle parked there, which is the VIP parking area. That gave me a view inside the club. The right double door was all the way open. The left double door was about halfway open, being blocked by one of the bodies. Saw the shooter casually just walk through the west bar towards the north end of the building. Shooting rounds into bodies as he just stepped over them. Bam, 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 bam. Nobody was running at this point. There was just bodies on the ground. I didn't have a shot at that point. I don't even know if I engaged at that point. My only focus was watching the shooter putting rounds in the bodies that were down. He started to proceed to the east. There's a door, a glass door, that goes between the west bar and the main dance floor area. At some point I turned, I saw an OPD officer had arrived. I don't even know who he is. I repositioned over to the east side of the business, knowing that there was a back alleyway on the north that leads to the patio, and another doorway that goes from the main dance floor to the patio. As I repositioned, the patio gate was open. The door going from the main dance floor to the patio was open. And I saw him cross from the left to the right. So from the south side of the main dance floor to the north side of the main dance floor. Again, gun was down, anywhere from 45 down vertical, still shooting into bodies that were down. At that point, I didn't see anybody other than him standing. I was standing in the parking lot, somewhere near the sidewalk to the middle portion of the parking lot, looking straight through the opening of the patio door, the door going into the club. And I knew I had a shot. Active shooter, he's continuing. At that point, I fired 2 more times before he was out of my view. Again, firing at him for fear of loss of additional life that was occurring. There's a momentary pause for me. It's somewhere in that moment or time frame. Thought about my family, my wife and my children, and made the conscious decision, I will not die tonight. Patrol officer was on the Orange Avenue side. Several patrol at that point. I guess hundreds of officers had shown up. But a female patrol officer was there, taking cover behind the front of her vehicle. Some additional officers were alongside her. I know on the radio at one point, one of the lieutenants, I don't know who, was saying, if it's an active shooter, get a team and engage. And at that point, we did have a team. I looked at the female officer. I said, long gun up front. We're going up to that fence line. We're going in through that patio gate. I've been told that I gave a briefing to this officer. I don't know what I said. I've been told that I gave a description. what kind of long gun he had or what type of firearm he had and where he was and what he was doing. I don't recall any of that. I recall I estimated him when I first saw him to be about 6'1", either a light-skinned black male or a Hispanic male. Don't recall anything of facial. I never saw a face. It was always either facing away from me or side view. I don't recall any shirt, but I believed that he may have been wearing khaki shorts, but I don't know. We put a team together. We advanced up onto the fence. I know Sergeant Ira Morris arrived with a shield, so we called him up to the front. And just prior to making entry into the patio, the shooting stopped for an extended period. At this point, there had been multiple volleys, multiple pauses. Bang, 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 pause. Bang, 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 pause. And I knew he was reloading. The pauses were enough time for a reload. But there was an extended pause at this point. So now that caused us to pause and try to make a decision. Did we still have an active shooter? Was he down? Did I down him? Or was he contained? How is the situation changing for us and our reaction at this moment? Then the shooting started again, and at some point, and I don't remember how or why or where, I left from that team, and Lieutenant Scott Smith had arrived with an assault rifle and was advancing on the main door, and somehow I ended up not directly with him, but in the area of his team, advancing on the main door. There was a female that was down on the parking lot, right in the center of the road, who had been shot multiple times. An officer or two was trying to get her extricated. I holstered at that moment and helped get her into a truck, and they just left. At some point, I don't know how or who, but the main window was shattered out, and then entry was made in through the main window. I joined the group going in, and then at some point, and I don't know who made this determination or how it came about, that he was contained in a bathroom on the west end of the bar. Main dance floor had about, I estimated, 25 plus bodies, just scattered everywhere. 3 of them were literally laying on top of each other on a stage. We started securing different portions of the club, and then brought in additional officers to remove victims. At one point, a group of a dozen or so alive and walking victims were sent out from somewhere in the main portion of the building towards me, and I just directed them through the open window. They had no idea where to go. 911 was on the phone with several people who said they were trapped inside of the offices upstairs. I'm familiar with the layout of the building, so I was talking with the communications on the radio, asking where they were, and then I was directing, giving information to Lieutenant Smith. There's an office upstairs. It's accessed via this ladder behind the bar's door. We can see it from the main dance floor behind the DJ booth. He was asking about an upstairs area behind us on the south side of the building, and we were positioning officers to cover. Communicated with the radio to have the individuals in that room come out with their hands up, slowly listen to our commands. Some other officers took over. When they made contact with them, had them come down, and then they were extricated. And then at one point, Lieutenant Smith took hold of me and said, "Okay, you're done." And I was removed from the scene and brought to the intersection of Kelly and Orange, where I was asked to give as much information as I could. And then I was removed from the scene altogether.
Okay, so that concluded your involvement with this incident?
Correct.
Okay. What I'm going to do now, I know you gave various locations and positions, so I have some diagrams that I was able to get from Google Maps and a layout, a sketch of the interior of the nightclub. So we can go.
People just use this one and show where he parked around the building, and that might be your best bet.
Okay.
Because then you can mark it up. And
I'll let you look at that sketch.
there's actually a layout of Pulse Nightclub. Florida.
Did this look familiar to you?
It does.
Okay, what I'm going to do is have you to mark where you initially park your vehicle, and then prior to the club closing, you move your vehicle to a different location.
No, my vehicle is always parked in the same place.
Okay.
When I reposition myself,
Okay.
like where I stand. Normally, I stand right by my vehicle.
Okay.
But during the course of the night, sit down in my vehicle, drink my coffee, walk around. There's we've had a burglary or two down Esther Street, so I'll just look down Esther Street or walk down someday, just kind of make the night go by. But my vehicle always stayed where it's at. So looking at the Google Earth street view image of the south side of the building, it runs alongside Esther Street. My vehicle is always positioned right here on top of the sidewalk. There's a tree, and then some sort of street sign there. So that's where I parked upon my arrival for my shift, and then when I returned from looking for the juvenile, again parked my vehicle there.
Okay. And at the point where you relocated towards the end of the club was getting ready to close, where were you positioned?
The car or myself?
Yourself.
So typically I would reposition to this area where the valet would be. But I hadn't yet. I was getting ready to, but I was just standing out front of my vehicle, because it's about the 2. It's not like 2 o'clock. I'm walking right over here immediately. Sometimes at 2 o'clock we'll get a rush. There's no more alcohol sales, so everybody wants to leave. Or 2:10, everybody's closed out their tabs. Then we get a rush. So it's kind of just based upon how many people are lingering. I try not to force anything. If there's 2 or 3 or 4 people just hanging out, there's no reason for me to be an asshole and tell them you have to go. They're just hanging out, talking to their friends, saying goodbye, or asking where they're going to meet next or whatever. it's when the main crowd of a couple hundred come out that, okay guys, we're done for the night, have a good night, and I try to keep the driveway open for the valet so they can get their cars through. So at this point I was still just prior to the first gunshot at the front of my vehicle on the sidewalk.
Okay. Let me get you to put a number 1 and put your initials underneath that. Okay, so you was approximately within this area when you heard the first gunshots?
Correct.
Okay. So when you heard the first gunshots, where did you move to?
So at that point, I repositioned to a vehicle that was parked. I don't know if it was the first stall or the second stall, but in this general area. I'll put a 2 there, behind a vehicle. That gave me a view essentially of 2 sides of the building, the main doors, this out double doors, and the patio exit. You can't see the exit door, but you can see the corner of the fence line.
Okay. And what side of the club are you on now at this moment?
The south side.
South side. Okay. You can keep going. I'm just tracking your movement now.
At that, I stayed there during the first couple volleys of gunshots. That's where I called as I moved from the front of my car from 1 to 2. I called the shots fired. I believe there was a point in time where I may have come into the parking lot. I don't specifically remember. I know that there was somebody that was just standing there, like on a cell phone. Like it amazed me that somebody just was standing there. So I think I came out from the car and grabbed them, yelled at her. I don't know. I don't recall that. But as I'm at what I've marked as 2, I again can see the main door, the double doors. That's when I see the girl that was banging on the main door, and I kind of got upset, thinking I just called the cavalry for nothing, and everybody's going to be pissed at me because of this girl that's banging on the door. But again, that quickly stopped. It was within seconds. And then the shooting continued. Timetable-wise, I don't know. Again, it feels like forever. But probably after somewhere between the second and fourth volley, I saw 2 victims come out and fall in the area of the double doors. I was still positioned behind the car where I've marked 2. And then I saw the right double door open, and the barrel of a long gun come out, and these 2 victims take additional rounds. That's when I feared that the gunman was going to continue out the door and engage me. If he did, I don't know. I don't know if I ever took rounds from him or not. And I feared for the safety and lives of these 2 people that were down, that were being shot, and the safety and lives of people that I knew were still in the club, because there were not a couple hundred people that were running. So I engaged. That caused him to retreat. From where I have marked number 2, I repositioned to an area along this fence line where I marked number 3. There was a vehicle that was parked in this area. I took cover from there and was able to see straight into the club via the open double doors. Again, the right one was all the way open, the left one was partially open. Watched him shoot more bodies and transition to the north and then to the east. At that point, or at some point during this portion, an OPD officer arrived. I don't know if I told him anything or said anything, but I moved from where I have marked number 3 through the south side of the parking lot to a general area of what I'll mark as 4. This white sign is the gate going into the patio. This is a PVC fence. Directly in line with that is a door into the main portion of the building. I think I was somewhere near the edge of the pavement, but I don't know exactly where in this general area. Looking through those open doors, when I saw the shooter come from the south to the north, through the what I call the window of my view, but through the doorway. He was probably about mid-dance, not mid-dance floor. He was probably about midway of the bar, going to the diagram of the building. Here's the door leading from the building to the bar, it's a patio, and then this is a door that leads from the patio out to the parking lot. He was somewhere in this area, walking this way. There's a stage.
Look at you put S for suspect.
Again, a very short window. Probably at the outer range of my handgun for probably at the outer range of my handgun for being able to take him down. But at that point, again, I watched him just putting rounds into bodies. There was nobody else standing. It was just him. I knew the club wasn't clear. I knew there were people in there, and so I engaged. Again, fearing for the lives of anybody that was contained inside of the building. Got 2 rounds off from the very quick view that I had of him.
And you was at this area?
I was. So this is the patio, and then there is the parking lot, and then this is Orange Avenue. I was somewhere in this area. I don't know if I was on the sidewalk, in the bushes, or on the road, on the parking lot, but I believe I was in the area of the parking lot.
So that's still at 4 somewhere?
Correct.
We'll put 4 there for you as well. Okay.
That's after I engaged the second time. That's when there was a pause. Or I'm sorry, before the pause. That's when I spoke with the female officer, and we started to put a team together, and told her that she was, long gun up front. She was hunkered down behind her car, and rightfully so. I don't want to speak for her. But she looked scared. I know I was. And when I said long gun up front, she almost had this look of, and I'm not laughing, fuck you. I'm not going up front. And I do know, I said, do I need to take that gun from you? Because I was advancing, we were going with or without you. And by no means am I going to speak for her at all. I don't know what her mental state was, what her thought process was at all. But at one point, she got into the fight. Her and a couple other officers advanced up to the fence. I'm sorry, nope, that's the building. Her and a couple of officers advanced up to the fence line of the patio, just shy of the open gate, and then I believe they came around a back side of a patrol car, and I came around the front side of a patrol car to start to join them. Sergeant Ira Morris came up from somewhere to the north with a shield, and then just as we were putting the team in place, there was an extended pause of gunfire. So at that point, I didn't know if my engagement had put him down at all, or if he was setting up an ambush and waiting for us to make entry. And so we had a momentary pause, and I don't think the momentary pause lasted more than a couple seconds before we start. You know, I didn't make entry through this gate, but that momentary pause allowed me to see Lieutenant Smith come up from the east side, advancing towards the main door, and then the gunfire started again. And then for whatever reason, I don't know. I don't know if it was I felt more comfortable or why, but I felt that there was enough officers here for a team, and it was Lieutenant Smith and I believe another officer, and I went to join that group. So I left from that area back towards the south side, where Lieutenant Smith was. There was a victim somewhere in this general area. At some point, I don't know when, I helped get her into a truck. Somebody pulled up a truck here. Lieutenant Smith approached the large window that has a waterfall that goes into what's identified as the reception area. Somehow somebody, I don't know if it was a gunshot or somehow the window was broken out. And an entry was made. I made entry. I don't know left or right. They're not doors. They're just openings that have these like metal bead curtains that hang down. I made entry. At some point, I came into the main dance floor area, stayed in the VIP lounge area, stage area. 3 bodies on the stage, multiple bodies all throughout. A male victim had taken a gunshot wound to the head, and was laying just almost center of the floor, with his head just butterflied open. It was just chaos. It was as organized and controlled chaos as it possibly could be. Things started getting secured. At some point, it was determined that the suspect had entered into the bathroom area. There's 2 entrances, and I wasn't sure which one he had gone into. Lieutenant Smith, I know, was in the West Bar area. We called in additional officers to start bringing out victims. We quickly assessed who was standing in my immediate area. No, they're dead, they're dead, they're dead. And just trying to find anybody that was alive or potentially alive. At some point, excuse me, I was over here. This is just an opening going from the reception area and main bar area into the west bar. I know Lieutenant Smith was behind the bar. Sergeant Backus, both SWAT team members were behind the bar.
Want you to put Smith and Backus.
I remember Sergeant Backus yelling at somebody that was down behind the bar, a victim, and I think he said he couldn't move, and so he said just stay down. A couple officers were here. I don't know who they were, and then I was kind of just stacked up behind them, and we were covering we were more focused on what's identified as the men's bathroom door, because that was what we had a view of the best. We could see the other door where I've come to know that the suspect went into, but Sergeant Backus and Lieutenant Smith had that covered. At some point, I came away from here. We were literally officers stacked upon officers, and I had a handgun, and so we put rifles in through this opening to cover. Transitioned back out into the main bar area, and at some point, Lieutenant Smith, I don't know where he came from, but he came out of the west bar area and came into the main dance floor bar area with me. I was on with the radio. Above where it says liquor storage and kitchenette, there's a ladder that goes up from the kitchen to a second floor. That second floor houses a DJ that overlooks the main stage, and then a small office. That's where I was communicating with our dispatch that they were on with on the 911 with victims inside there, and was briefing Lieutenant Smith of what's up there. Yep, this is how we either have to access it or they have to access it. There's only a ladder. There's no stairs to that one. We extricated them. I know there were officers doing their jobs over here off of the patio and the main dance floor, extricating whoever they located. Once the victims in the office were extricated, at some point Lieutenant Smith grabbed me and said, "All right, we're out," and I was removed.
Okay. When you first saw the suspect, did you hear him say anything?
No.
Throughout this encounter, you never heard the suspect saying anything?
No.
Did the suspect see when you fired rounds at him?
I don't know. I know it caused him to go back inside. He did not continue to advance out.
Okay. And what weapon did you see? Were you able to identify the make and model?
No, I just saw the long, thin barrel of a long gun. I didn't know. At this point, I know it was an AR only because of news coverage, but I didn't know at the time that it was an AR.
Okay. And you said throughout you heard several volleys?
Correct. pitch of the gunshots was consistent throughout, coming from the same gun. There was no change in pitch to indicate a change in caliber that I heard. It was just the high pitch and consistent pitch of the same long gun being fired in a steady semi-automatic bang, 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 bang. He had trigger control. It wasn't bang, 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 bang. It was just a steady squeeze of the trigger, bang, squeeze of the trigger, bang, squeeze of the trigger, bang. Then when I watched him through the West Bar shooting victims that were down, it was one or two here, one or two there, as he just casually walked. He didn't run. He walked as there were victims that were down in that West Bar.
Okay, and you said that you're not sure if he ever saw you.
I don't know.
Okay. Did you see any officers fire any rounds once you made entry into the bar?
Not that I remember. I think there may have been a round directed at the bathroom, but I don't know. I don't know if that was him, that was us. I don't know if that was just glass breaking at that point. We were inside of that building within 2 to 3 minutes of that first gunshot. And then once the team started getting it in, it seemed like officers flowed in from everywhere. We had them contained. We knew we had them contained. The shooting stopped. And so at that point, it was containment and rescue. But I don't remember seeing anybody fire their firearm inside. I know nobody fired on the outside that I saw.
And these right here are the West restrooms?
Yes.
On the west side?
Correct.
Let me get you just one. Now, when you was inside, did you see any civilians walking around?
No. Well, yes and no. No, there was nobody that was standing until somebody said, if you're alive, something, stand up, yell out. I just heard somebody say, if you're alive. And then at some point when I was covering one of the bathrooms, so before I was working with the dispatcher to extricate the victims from the office, I was over the opening into the West Bar, covering the bathrooms. At some point, a bunch of victims came flowing from the main dance area into the reception, and a lot of people are used to, at the end of the night, they can just walk through these double doors. So when the reception area gets full of people leaving, they'll just kind of walk into the West Bar and through the double doors. The double doors are left unlocked, and so they were coming into this opening, and I directed them. I said, through the window, through the window, through the window. So that's when I saw victims that were walking. But upon our initial entry, there was nobody that was standing.
Now, when you fired your first round, approximately how far were you from the suspect? If you had to...
I'd say about 75 feet from where I was positioned, taking cover behind a car, that was parked in the parking lot to the double doors.
Okay. You had a pretty clear sight. Were there anybody walking in between?
No. There was the 2 victims that fell here. There was some folks that were coming from the patio area that was just yelling at them to run. But there was nobody in between us. At some point, there was a victim on the ground, but I don't think she was on the ground at the time of my engagement. I think she came out afterwards.
Okay. Now, at the second point where you fired, engaged the subject, how far were you from?
So from him, I was at the outer range of effectiveness for putting him down. I'll probably say about 100 plus feet from the area of what I've identified as 4. I believe I was standing in the parking lot through both doors into the main club, and when I engaged him there, there was nobody standing. It was just him, and again, it was such a short window of him walking from the south to the north.
Okay. What was the lighting condition like?
Outside, there's good lighting. Inside, dark. The dance floor lights, the disco lights, the laser lights were still on. Music had been turned off by somebody, so there was no music. But I was able to clearly see him, saw his firearm, saw him shooting, and readily identified him again as the person that I engaged the first time. And again, I could see the bodies from the outside. The ones that I saw were along the bar area first, that I could see through here, and they were kind of like not tucked underneath the bar, but several feet away in the view of the opening.
Now, once you made entry into the club, did you ever see the suspect again?
No.
Okay. What was your state of mind throughout this entire process? What was going through your mind?
It was all training. There was no conscious thought as to what I was going to do or what my actions were going to be. When the first gunshots rang out, I was like, shit, I'm going to be here a long time. We're going to have a murder. This is going to be another typical nightclub shooting. The suspect's going to give up, run away, and I'm going to be here forever tonight. That quickly changed when the volleys continued. I knew it was something completely different. And I knew that people were getting shot inside. I felt helpless. I'd do no good, dead, to any of these people. Advancing on somebody with an assault rifle or a long gun with a 9mm. So I had to wait. I couldn't do nothing. When I saw the 2 victims come out the double doors and were being shot at, I knew there was loss of life. Even before that, I knew there was loss of life occurring. I knew it wasn't celebratory gunfire, somebody just shooting in the air, trying to be a big man and watch me, I'm going to show you. Because if that's the case, it would have ended much sooner. I know I heard over 50, 60, 70 rounds being shot. So it was the south side of the building was all trained. There was no conscious thought. I don't even remember. I know I sight pictured, but I don't remember. There was no pause, pause, breathe, and level. There was no thought process of that. I saw my rounds impact where I was aiming, which was the upper torso chest area. When I repositioned to the east, the only conscious thought there was, and that was only because there was a pause of reload, was of my wife and 6 children, and telling myself I will not die tonight. And then again, I've been informed, and I don't remember doing this at all, but I've been informed. I gave a briefing to this officer as to what the situation was what was going on. I don't remember saying that at all. And forming a team and advancing. Because I remember somebody, it was one of the lieutenants, saying, if it's active shooter, engage, team, engage. And I think I said, we are, I don't know what, I haven't heard any radio transmissions, so I don't know. And then at the point that we were inside, the thought was state of mind was just like, we transitioned into rescue. It was mass casualty triage. Are you dead or alive? If you're dead, we're moving on. If you're alive, we're dragging you. And people were being dragged. The blood was a half inch to an inch thick. I mean, there's just pools of it, and it was just bright red and thick.
And that was throughout the interior of the club, as you described it?
The main dance floor area, yeah. I actually never walked through the west bar because that's where we had him contained. And so there were no officers that were out front of the bar. There was Lieutenant Smith and Sergeant Backus from the SWAT team that were behind the bar, positioned behind the bar. There were officers positioned in this opening, and then there were officers positioned at this double door, covering various angles. I know at one point when I was in the main area during the extraction phase, there were some officers at this door covering. I remember telling Lieutenant Smith there's a dressing room in the back, to the back right of the stage. There's another small door that goes to a small dressing room area, and then there was an alleyway that could be accessed through that back door by the dressing room.
Okay.
Just when your first encounter at the double doors, did you announce anything to make him aware that law enforcement was there? At that point?
No. At that point, there was no announcements. It was an active shooter. It was a deadly force encounter. There was fear. There was known loss of life. There was fear of additional loss of life, and then there was fear of deadly force being used on me.
And then just to hit on your uniform again for identification purposes and like video and stuff like that, you were wearing.
It's a white Motors polo shirt.
Polo shirt.
Correct. So it's all white. It has my name, Orlando Police Department, my badge.
Okay. Did you have a tack vest on or a vest underneath?
No, I had my duty vest underneath.
Underneath it. So
correct.
You would see the white polo.
Yes.
And then you said BDUs. What color were BDUs?
Dark blue.
Dark blue. Okay.
And then my tactical, just my normal patrol tactical style boots.
Okay.
Did you have your gun belt and all that?
Full gun belt, taser, baton, pepper spray, flashlight, 2 sets of handcuffs, magazine, double magazine pouch, and my firearm.
So you was easy to identify you as a law enforcement officer?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The only thing I got is obviously you've received extensive training on active shooter situations,
Yes.
and as part of that training, you've received briefs and information about the individuals that conduct those attacks and the tactics they use and the techniques.
Correct. That's why when there was a pause before when we started to establish a team and came up to this fence line outside the patio, and there was a pause. It was an extended pause. It wasn't the pauses that I've heard throughout. It was an extended pause. That's why the question now became, was it still an active shooter? Was he down? Was he contained? Or was he setting an ambush for us? Because at that point, it seemed like hundreds, and eventually I think it was, but it was there were dozens of officers on scene. That there was a pause in our movement to reassess: did we still have the active shooter? Was he setting an ambush for us? And then the shooting started again, and so we knew it was a continued active shooter. In a sense, that was good, because we knew where he was. We could identify his location via the gunshots. And so we could move forward and not have to be as diligent to clear a patio. Our training is to move to the gunfire as efficiently and safely as possible. So if I were to have made entry via the patio, and I know the gunfire, I last saw the suspect, and I know the gunfire is still coming from within, I can quickly eliminate the patio as an area of immediate concern, and continue to advance forward. And typically, this, it's a mass casualty scenario that inflict as much damage as possible when it's an active shooter.
Okay. All right, and then last question. Just to summarize, based on your knowledge, training, and experience, is it a fair estimate to say, based on what you saw and as things transpired, looking at it, as you referenced, the firearms proficiency of the individual, the calmness with which he moved around, is it fair to say that your assessment when you went in was you were dealing with somebody potentially motivated by something far more significant than a crime of passion or a personal grievance?
Absolutely. When the first shots rang out, and I was thinking, great, another nightclub shooting, and I have to be here for it. Typically, it's a drug deal. It's, oh, you were talking to my woman, or oh, you jacked me, you robbed me of my dope last week, so I'm going to take you out. But that would have stopped in this first volley. But there was multiple volleys. That's the only word I can use for it. And there was periods of reload. So absolutely, I knew this was not a typical deadly force encounter, a typical shooting that we would have encountered. This was something much more. Didn't obviously at the moment a terroristic event did not cross my mind, but a mass casualty active shooter, I'm going to be famous incident was going on. I am going down in the books, in the history of whatever reason or why or whatever fucked up mentality was going through his mind at the moment. So yeah, it was not the norm. It was not something that I've dealt with in the past. I spent 5 years with our fugitive unit. I had a guy blow his brains out 5 feet in front of me. It didn't even faze me. Okay, you're dead. You molested your teenage children. Good. I've gone in through doors with my team after single, double, triple homicide suspects. None of this was anything like I've experienced in 15 years. So I knew, not instantly, but very quickly, that it was different.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Can I get you to sign on this? Just sign and put today's date on each one.
Any of these ones or not? You didn't copy it.
Today's the 19th now?
17.
17.
Track of days here.
Okay. With that said, the time is 10:49. We're going to conclude this interview.